The dedicated lifter spends an average of 7 hours per week training in the gym. With a total of 168 hours in a week, 7 isn't much. 7 hours is only 1 in every 24 parts of a life. With such a disproportionately small amount of time spent on exercise, it seems unlikely for any type of real change to take place as a result. It seems unlikely such a small thing could have any kind of meaningful impact on everything else, but it does. 7 hours a week, spread out over the course of a few years, is enough to dramatically change a person. With this in mind, it stands to reason that every moment of your time spent training has a great deal of potential. Every moment is an opportunity for more strength and power and muscle, more speed and agility, more endurance, more skill. The question is, how much of that potential are you tapping into? 1 part in every 4? 2 in 10? Many training programs are designed to focus on one specific attribute at the expense of everything else, pure muscle or max endurance. Others are too ambitious and don't lead anywhere at all. The key to maximizing the value of your training time is found somewhere in the middle. Somewhere between an understanding of the potential held within every moment and the knowledge that limits do exist. How much can you do without doing too much? How many different traits can be trained at the same time before progress slows down? Many have tried to answer these questions. Many have succeeded. There's often a problem, though. Training routines created to improve upon many different things at once often end up kind of ridiculous. They're too strict with too many moving parts, and the time investment usually gets to be just a bit too much. 2 or 3 a day routines, the use of specialized equipment out of reach for most. These do-it-all programs become so complicated that no one with anything else going on in their lives wants any part of them. Most will take one look at these wildfire programs and decide maybe they'd be better off just sticking with the simple 3x5 routine they were doing already. That's fine for some, those things work, but for those few who truly do want to maximize every minute they spend in the gym, those who want more than just muscle or just speed, here's an alternative. What if rather than branching out and expanding infinitely into every possible realm of fitness, creating workout routines made up of 200 different exercises, you condense? What if rather than trying to include every little thing from every possible place, we look at the basics, the fundamentals, the things that have the biggest impact on a person's physical capacity and take those things to their extreme end? Imagine for a moment that every movement pattern, every physical attribute or trait or ability, and every skill has its own list of exercises. On that list, every exercise is placed in order based on how genuine it is, how close to the mark it lands as the most fundamental version of whatever it's trying to accomplish. Maybe you want an element of strength in your program. More likely than not, you'd probably do at least some kind of picking something up off the ground. The typical hyper-expansive do-it-all style routine would have you doing every possible type of picking something up off the ground there is, using every existing piece of equipment, but our program is after the base layer and nothing more. Rather than how many different exercises can I do to work this lifting from the ground strength from every possible angle, the question becomes, what exercise is the purest form of picking something up off the ground? With that question guiding you, it becomes a simple matter of making your way down the list. Maybe our exercise would be a leverage-based machine deadlift? No, not deep enough. Barbell deadlift? Closer, but still, there's more room to take things to an even more concentrated place. How about picking up an awkward object? That might be it. Lifting a stone or a log or a sandbag seems like the purest form of lifting something from the ground, so that's what you would choose for that part of the program. You might say the sandbag deadlift is more deadlift than any other variation. By working with the most basic form of lifting something from the ground, you gain strength with every other, more complex form that lives above it on the list. The opposite isn't true. A sandbag deadlift will make you just about as good at the machine deadlift as you would be if you had actually worked with the movement directly, but a machine deadlift won't get you nearly as close to true strength lifting a sandbag. In this way, our program condenses down to that one thing, one exercise that contains within it the power to improve all others. It's the direct route. By taking this direct route, we give ourselves much more room to include other things. By covering that aspect of strength with one basic exercise, we can continue branching out to other types of strength, or to other things entirely, like endurance, speed, agility, muscle, or whatever, because we'll have more recovery resources left over. Let me say this in another way. Imagine you're looking out over a pond on a windless day. The The surface of the water is still, and you can see straight through to the bottom. The pond represents something you're trying to improve, in this case, strength lifting something from the ground. If you want to reach your full potential improving this ability, you need to figure out a way to cause a ripple in the water that moves across the entire pond, from one shore to all the others. You'll do this by throwing stones into the water. The catch is, you can only toss so many stones on a weekly basis before you become overly exhausted, so you need to choose carefully. One method for doing this is to search around for every small stone that represents strength picking things up off the ground until you have a handful and toss them all into the pond at once. Each small wave would probably be enough to make waves across the entire surface of the water, but you'll have used up a large portion of your weekly limit. The other method is much simpler and gets the job done with much less work. Rather than many small stones, why not just find the biggest rock and toss it in? The one big rock would cause a much bigger wave, and you'd accomplish the same thing in a lot less time while holding on to many more of your weekly resources. In this example, the sandbag deadlift would be the biggest rock. You can become better at many different things all at the same time if you're smart about it. Regardless of however many hours you train per week, you can get more out of that time and develop multiple abilities at once, and you don't need ridiculous programs to do it. If you're interested, make a checklist of all the things you want: muscle, strength, power, speed, mobility, whatever else, and start thinking about which exercises lie at the very base levels of those things, and build your program off of that. I've personally found sandbags and basic calisthenics checks a lot of boxes, but you might like something else better. A good friend of mine here on YouTube, Steve Calamars, has chosen to focus part of his time on something I don't think many even consider: artistry and perfection of movement. You watch him performing the Turkish getup with his kettlebell, and you know he's a master. He found something that contains within it many things: mobility, strength, skill, art, and got to work. The funny truth at the center of all this is, by condensing your program into the most basic parts of things, you'll find you're actually much better able to expand into different realms of fitness than you would have otherwise been when expansion was the original goal. I don't mean to say variation is bad and that minimalism is the way forward or anything like that, though I do think it's a good idea to evaluate your program from time to time and cut away anything that isn't serving a purpose. Look at the exercises you're doing and ask yourself if they all have real value and meaning. Do you really need 6 dumbbell pressing variations and 15 different footwork agility drills? Maybe, maybe not. More than anything, I just hope this video got you excited about your training. I think it would be pretty cool to see a list of the most fundamental versions of all parts of fitness. I wonder what your list would be. Right now, I imagine sprinting would be a good way to get straight to the point if speed was your goal, and maybe gymnastics rings would be at the lowest level of a list on calisthenics exercises. There's a lot to think about. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.